Welcome to Heartbreaker, your love radio.
Gabriel was back in his small town. The sun shone brightly, but he couldn't feel its warmth. Ever since he returned from the war, an emptiness followed him, a shadow that seemed to stretch with every step he took through familiar streets. He had lost a leg in combat, and with it, part of his identity. Gabriel remembered how he used to run freely on the same sidewalks before enlisting. Now, the prosthetic leg constantly reminded him that something was irreparably broken. He struggled to adapt, but every movement was a reminder of the fragility of his condition. As he approached his house, he felt his heart tighten. Helena, his wife, was home, but the coldness emanating from her seemed more palpable than before. "Hi, love," he said, trying to hide the insecurity in his voice. Helena glanced at him briefly, a forced smile appearing on her lips.
Gabriel.
"How was your day?" The response was short, almost automatic, as if she was more interested in something other than the conversation. "The same as always," he replied, trying to keep the conversation going. "I went to physiotherapy and then passed by the park." Gabriel observed her distant gaze, as if she was somewhere else, far from him. "That's nice," she said, looking away again, adjusting her hair and changing her position on the couch. He felt a pang of rejection but tried to ignore it. What really worried him was the growing distance between them. Helena had always been his support, his anchor in difficult moments, but now, there seemed to be an abyss between them that he couldn't understand. In the days that followed, Gabriel noticed that Helena's routine had changed. She started going out more, with excuses about working late or meeting friends. He tried to be understanding, but insecurity grew like a weed in his heart. One night, while looking at old photos, he realized that the joy that once filled the house was disappearing, replaced by an uncomfortable silence. "Helena, are you going out again?" he asked one night while she was getting ready in front of the mirror. "Yes, I'm going to meet some friends." "I won't be long," she replied without looking him in the eyes. "You've been going out a lot lately. Is everything okay between us?" His voice trembled, laden with anxiety. "Of course, Gabriel. I'm just trying to distract myself a little," Helena said, her voice sounding more irritated than calm. "You know how hard this is for me too." Gabriel felt a knot form in his stomach. He watched her leave, and the door closed behind her, leaving him alone in the darkness of the living room. Insecurity turned into suspicion. There was something in the way she avoided his eyes, in the little lies that seemed to escape her lips. The nights became long and lonely, and he began to question if the war had really ended for him or if it still continued silently at home. Weeks passed, and Gabriel's sadness intensified. He felt like a stranger in his own life, and the idea that Helena might not be completely honest hurt more than losing his leg. He sought support from friends, but the social distance the war had created made him feel isolated. The moments of joy they once shared were slowly replaced by heavy silence and a sense of impending betrayal. "Why is this happening?" Gabriel whispered to himself one night while staring at the ceiling. A feeling of helplessness overwhelmed him. He wanted to understand, wanted to fight for the woman he loved, but the fear that she would leave him forever paralyzed him. Gabriel sat at the kitchen table, his gaze lost in the steaming cup of coffee in front of him. The familiar aroma of fresh coffee couldn't dispel the cloud of uncertainty beginning to settle in his chest. He looked out the window, watching the movement of the small town, where everyone seemed to follow their normal routines, oblivious to the storm brewing inside him. Helena, his wife, walked in and out of the room, always with a distracted air, as if she were somewhere else, far from the house that once pulsed with their shared life. "Helena, aren't you going to tell me where you were?" Gabriel asked, the concern evident in his voice. He tried not to sound possessive, but the restlessness consumed him. Since his return, he had noticed she was different, more distant and evasive. "Oh, I was just doing some shopping," Helena replied, avoiding his gaze. The hesitation in her voice made Gabriel feel a chill in his stomach. It was as if she was hiding something, and it bothered him.
Shopping?
"But you didn't take the car." "I thought you were going to the usual store," he insisted, trying to understand the change. "Yes, well, I decided to walk." The day was nice and I needed some fresh air, she said, with a smile that didn't convince Gabriel. He noticed how her eyes averted, as if she was avoiding a truth she didn't want to face. As days passed, this feeling of discomfort only grew. Gabriel began to notice that Helena was busier than usual, frequently going out without explaining where she was going or with whom. He remembered the promises they made at the altar, the commitment to always be together, no matter the situation. And now, she seemed to be distancing herself from him, as if she wanted to hide somewhere he couldn't reach. One night, as she was getting ready to go out again, Gabriel decided to confront her. "Helena, we need to talk. You can't just leave like this without telling me where you're going. I feel excluded from your life." She turned, her expression a mix of fatigue and impatience. "Gabriel, please. Don't start with this again. I just need some time for myself. You know I'm trying to deal with all of this too." "Deal with what? With our life together or with something you're hiding from me?" Gabriel's tone involuntarily rose, and he felt a knot forming in his throat. Uncertainty consumed him, and he felt powerless in the face of the situation. "It's nothing, Gabriel. I'm just trying to find some normalcy. You have to understand that," she shouted, frustration evident. "You're still recovering, and this is hard for both of us." "Hard? You have no idea what hard is. I'm here struggling to adapt to a new life, and you just—" He stopped, his voice breaking. "I feel like I'm losing you, and it hurts more than any wound I suffered in the war." Helena looked at him, her gaze softening but still distant. "Gabriel, this isn't how I want things to be. I just need some space. Let's just take a break, okay?" Her words echoed in Gabriel's mind, like the echo of a reality he didn't want to accept. The silence that followed was heavy, as if the air in the room was thick with the tension between them. He wanted to scream, wanted to cry, but felt that none of it would help. Distrust began to take root in his heart, and he wondered if he could ever trust Helena again. That night, Gabriel lay down, but sleep didn't come. He kept thinking about how the war had changed his life so much, and now, it seemed that the hardest battle would be against the distrust that was beginning to corrode his marriage. He turned to his side, staring at the empty space next to him. The house that was once a home now felt like a prison, and the thought of losing Helena forever left him in a state of despair he never imagined he would have to face. One night, while sitting on the living room sofa, Gabriel watched Helena getting ready to go out. She wore a new blouse he didn't remember seeing before, and her hair was down, falling in soft waves over her shoulders. He felt a pang of insecurity. "Where are you going, Helena?" he asked, trying to keep his voice neutral. "Oh, just meeting some friends." "I won't be long," she replied, avoiding his gaze. The way her response came out, quick and mechanical, made Gabriel's heart sink. "Don't you want me to come along?" He tried to sound casual, but anxiety began to take over him.
No, Gail.
"It's just a quick meeting. You know how things are, right?" "I need some time out," she replied as she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. In the following days, the situation didn't improve. Gabriel noticed Helena coming home late, often with a smile that didn't seem meant for him. The text messages on her phone, which used to be a constant exchange between them, now became scarce and cold. He decided he needed to know what was going on. One night, while she was sleeping, Gabriel took her phone, his breath quickening. With trembling hands, he unlocked the device and started going through the messages. His heart raced when he found a conversation that left him in shock. Affectionate words, followed by plans to meet. He felt as if the ground had opened up beneath him. The betrayal was right there, exposed before him, and the pain was unbearable. Consumed by anger and betrayal, Gabriel decided he needed to confront Helena. He could no longer bear the uncertainty, the pain of being left aside. With a knot in his stomach, he waited for her to come home. When the door opened, he faced her. "Helena, we need to talk," he said, his voice firm but trembling. She stopped, surprised. "About what, Gabriel?" "About you and this other man." The The words came out heavily, as if each one carried a specific weight he bore. Helena froze, and Gabriel saw the paleness on her face. What do you? Don't play dumb. I saw the messages. I know what's going on, he shouted, the pain turning into anger. You can't blame me for this, she replied, her voice cold, almost disdainful. You're not here. You've pulled away. I don't know how to deal with all of this. So that's it?
You betray me because il lost a leg?
You can't just leave me behind, Helena. Gabriel's indignation was palpable, and the pain in his eyes reflected the betrayal that had struck him. I don't have to explain myself to you, she replied, crossing her arms. You're not the same person I knew. I can't keep waiting for you to recover from something you don't want to face. The conversation turned into a duel of words, where Gabriel's pain and bitterness clashed with Helena's coldness. He felt a deep despair, not only because of the betrayal but also the disillusionment of realizing that the woman he loved had become someone he barely recognized. Gabriel left the house, anger and sadness pulsing in his chest. He walked through the deserted streets of the town, aimless, without answers. Losing his leg in the war was not just a physical alteration, it was as if he had lost a part of his identity. The memories of battle still echoed in his mind, but the recollections of his life before the war now seemed distant and unreal. Gabriel went to his friend Joao's house. Joao, you won't believe what I'm feeling, he confided to his war buddy. Gabriel looked at the cup of coffee, trying to find the words to express what he was going through. Talk to me, brother. What's going on? Joao asked, looking into Gabriel's eyes, as if trying to read his soul. Helena cheated on me, Gabriel replied, frustration evident in his voice. Man, you need to be sure of that. Sometimes people deal with pain in different ways. She might just be trying to understand what happened between you two, Joao suggested, trying to offer a more positive perspective. No, I saw the messages on her phone, Gabriel confessed, his voice almost a whisper. That's not fair, after everything you've been through, Joao warned, his expression serious. Gabriel nodded. He knew he needed to face the situation, but the idea of losing Helena left him paralyzed. Listen, this may seem like the end, but it's just a chapter. You are stronger than this. The war didn't break you, and you can't let this break you now, Joao said, his voice firm. Gabriel looked at Joao, seeking some hope in his words. It was hard to believe there was something beyond the pain, but maybe, just maybe, there was a way out. Joao smiled, a smile that reflected years of friendship and understanding. Family isn't just those who live under the same roof, Gabriel. Sometimes, you need someone who understands what you're going through. And I know you're fighting. Gabriel hesitated, but the sincerity in Joao's gaze encouraged him to open up. I just feel so lost, you know. Joao sat in the chair opposite, crossing his arms. Look, man, I'm not here to give you answers. But what I can tell you is that you can't let this pain define you. You survived the war, and now it's time to face the hardest battle your life. Gabriel looked down, Joao's words echoing in his mind. I just don't know how. My body changed, my mind changed, and now I feel like a burden.
Burden?
Gabriel, you are much more than that. You have a story. A story that can help others. What do you think about writing about what you went through? Not just the war, but also this phase of your life? It could be a way to turn your pain into something positive. The idea lingered in the air like a light at the end of a dark tunnel. Gabriel frowned, thoughtful. Writing? I never thought about it. But, maybe it's a way to get everything out. I don't know if I'm good enough. Joao laughed, a sound that brought some lightness to the atmosphere. No one is good enough right away. The important thing is to start. And who knows, one day, you might help others who went through what you did. What if I fail? What if people don't care about my story? Gabriel questioned, still feeling insecure. What if you don't try? What do you lose by trying? You've faced the worst, Gabriel. Now it's time to find a new purpose. You might be surprised by the response you could get. Joao's words began to penetrate Gabriel's mind, and he felt a spark of hope. Maybe you're right. I need to do something. I can't keep sinking into pain. The conversation flowed for several more hours, filled with laughter and memories, and for the first time in a long time, Gabriel felt a lightness he hadn't experienced since the day he returned from the war. That night, as he prepared to sleep, Gabriel took a notebook he had stored on a shelf. He opened it, sat at the table, and began to write, not just about the war but also about the pain of betrayal and his hopes for recovery. With each word he wrote, he felt a bit freer, as if he was starting to turn his pain into strength. And so, under the soft light of the lamp, a new purpose began to form in Gabriel's life. Gabriel was at an unexpected moment in his life. Returning to his hometown after the war had been full of challenges. Now he was becoming a speaker, a storyteller who not only talked about his experiences but wanted his voice to resonate in hearts and minds, offering hope and encouragement to those facing their own battles. The impact his story could have on people's lives was becoming increasingly clear to him. On a sunny day, Gabriel was preparing for his first lecture at a local school. The environment was vibrant, with students chatting animatedly, while he sat in a small auditorium, feeling adrenaline coursing through his body. One of the teachers, Carlos, approached him before the event and said, with a smile on his face, "Gabriel, we are all very excited to hear what you have to say. Your story is powerful and can inspire many here." "I hope it helps at least one person look at life differently," Gabriel replied, trying to contain the anxiety building in his chest. He knew how difficult it was to share his experiences, but he also understood that this was an opportunity to turn his pain into strength. When he stepped onto the stage, the curious eyes of the students turned towards him. Gabriel began to speak, his voice firm but with a touch of vulnerability. "I am Gabriel, and I am a war veteran. I came home after an experience that changed my life forever. I lost a part of myself in combat, but what I didn't expect was to lose an even more important part when I returned home, my connection with the people I loved." The words flowed naturally as he recounted the challenges he faced after the war, the loneliness, and the pain of Helena's betrayal. The silence in the room was palpable, and he could see empathy on the students' faces. A young man, sitting in the front row, timidly raised his hand and asked, "How did you manage to deal with all that? How did you find the strength to get up again?" Gabriel took a deep breath. "It was a process. At first, I felt lost, as if there was no way out. But then, a war buddy, Joao, helped me realize that I wasn't alone. He showed me that even in the darkest hours, there was a light to be found. And that light, no matter how faint, needed to be nurtured." At the end of the lecture, the students were inspired. Many approached him to share their own stories, and Gabriel realized that his experience had become a bond, connecting lives in ways he never imagined. A group of students, their eyes shining, asked for a photo with him, and Gabriel smiled, feeling more alive than ever. The lectures began to multiply. Gabriel received invitations from various schools and corporate events, and his story was spreading like wildfire. He felt grateful for every opportunity to speak, but also aware of the responsibility that came with it. For him, it wasn't just about telling his story but being a catalyst for change. One night, after returning home from an event, Gabriel called Joao. "Man, you won't believe how well today's lecture was received. The students were so engaged and asked amazing questions." "That's great, Gabriel. You're making a difference, and this is just the beginning. Remember that your voice is powerful." "Keep sharing," Joao replied, his voice full of enthusiasm. Gabriel felt a warmth in his chest. He had found a purpose. With the support of friends and the community, he began working on his first book, a project that would address not only his journey in the war but also his personal struggle and quest for resilience. He wanted readers to feel that they were not alone in their struggles. Creating the book became a moment of self-discovery. Gabriel spent hours writing, always surrounded by notes and drafts. In a city cafe, he came across a group of readers discussing a book about overcoming adversity. He approached them and, with a shy smile, asked, "Do you believe it's possible to turn pain into strength?" One of the readers, a young woman named Anna, looked at him and replied, "Yes, and I think you're living proof of that. We know your story, and it's inspiring. You should write a book." Gabriel felt confidence growing inside him. "I'm working on it. I hope that when it's ready, it can help others find their own strength." Over time, his book became a bestseller, touching hearts and minds across the country. Gabriel realized that while he had fought against pain and betrayal, he had found a new path, a path of hope and resilience that not only freed him but also inspired many around him. The day was cloudy, reflecting the turmoil of emotions Gabriel felt inside. He was at home. Helena had called earlier, asking to meet. He hesitated, but curiosity and the need for closure led him to agree. Sitting at the kitchen table, he looked out the window, trying to find some answers in the heavy clouds hanging over the town. The sound of the door opening brought him back to reality. Helena entered, her eyes searching for his, but Gabriel felt a chill down his spine. "Hi, Gabriel," Helena said, her tone hesitant. The familiarity was there, but the warmth was gone. He didn't respond immediately, just observed her. She was different, with a more tired air and an expression that reflected the challenges she was facing. "Why are you here, Helena?" he finally asked, frustration evident in his voice. "I wanted to talk. I feel like we need some time to clear things up," she said, trying to maintain her composure. Gabriel stared at her, the memories of betrayal still very vivid. "Clarify? What is there to clarify? You cheated on me, Helena. How can I just forget that?" The indignation grew inside him, each word laden with pain. Helena sighed, seeming lost in her thoughts. "I know I was wrong. And I'm sorry. Things weren't right between us, and I didn't know how to deal with it. The truth is, I miss you, Gabriel. And I miss who you were before all this. But you can't just come back and expect everything to be okay." "I'm not the same anymore," he replied, his voice firm. The transformation he had undergone in recent months had made him stronger, but also more aware of what he truly valued. She approached, a plea in her eyes. "Please, give me a chance. I'm facing financial and emotional difficulties. I feel like I'm losing everything. You are the only person I truly trusted." Gabriel shook his head, a wave of compassion mingling with the anger he felt. "You can't expect me to be your safe harbor now. I had to find my own strength. I can't allow myself to go back to something that hurt me so deeply. I understand that you're hurt, but I'm a different person now. I'm grateful for everything you did, and still do for me. I just need a chance to show that I can change," she pleaded, almost in desperation. "And I'm not the same person you left behind. I've been through a transformation, Helena. I can't hold on to what hurt me. You need to understand that," he said, his voice now softer, but full of determination. The tension in the air was palpable. Helena looked at him, a mix of hope and desperation, but Gabriel had already made his decision. He couldn't let himself be swayed by old promises and memories of a love that now seemed so distant. "I hope you find what you need, but I can't be what you want right now. I need to take care of myself first," he concluded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. Helena stepped back slightly, the reality of their situation weighing on both of them. She looked at him, tears welling in her eyes. "I understand. I really do. I just wish things were different." Gabriel felt a pang in his heart, but he knew he was doing the right thing.
Idotu, Elena.
But life isn't always what we want it to be. I need to move on. With one last look filled with emotion, Helena turned and walked out the door, leaving Gabriel alone once again. He sighed, feeling a bit lighter, but the pain was still present. However, he knew he had made the right decision. Life went on, and now he had to focus on his new path, one that would lead him to a future where the pain of the past would no longer define him. Gabriel, after months of loneliness and pain, finally found a new path in his life. Meeting Sophia changed everything. She was a dedicated psychologist, specializing in helping veterans reintegrate into society. The connection between them was instantaneous, like a forgotten flame had been rekindled within Gabriel. On a sunny morning, at the cafe they frequented, Gabriel and Sophia sat at a corner table, away from the city's noise. He looked at her, admiring how the sunlight illuminated her face. "You know, I never thought I could feel this again," Gabriel confessed, his voice filled with emotion. Sophia smiled, her eyes shining with understanding. "Love has no expiration date, Gabriel. Sometimes, it just needs a little time to manifest again, especially after so much pain." Gabriel nodded, thinking about everything he had been through. Helena's betrayal still left marks on his soul, but Sophia's presence made him feel alive again. "You make me believe I can be happy again," he said, with a slight smile. "You are already happy, Gabriel. You just need to allow yourself to feel it," Sophia replied, taking his hand and holding it firmly. "We can build something together, based on respect and mutual support. What do you think about starting to plan a future?" The idea of a shared future seemed surreal to Gabriel. He had gotten used to living in a world of uncertainties and disillusionments. "A future?" he repeated, almost in shock. "Do you really think that's possible for me?" "It's more than possible. It's necessary," Sophia said, looking into his eyes. "Let's take it one step at a time. We can attend events together, meet new people, and you can even help me with some projects I have planned for veterans." Gabriel felt his heart race. He had always wanted to help others who had gone through similar experiences, and the idea of doing it alongside Sophia motivated him. "I would love to help. I feel like in some way I can make a difference," he replied, his voice gaining strength. Days passed, and the relationship between Gabriel and Sophia deepened. They began attending events focused on veterans, where Gabriel not only told his story but also listened to the experiences of others, creating an environment of support and understanding. Sophia was always by his side, holding his hand during the toughest moments. At one of these events, while talking to a group of veterans, Gabriel paused and looked at Sophia, who watched him with an encouraging smile. "When I returned from the war, I thought I couldn't reintegrate into society. The pain, the loss, it seemed unbearable. But here I am, surrounded by incredible people and most importantly, next to someone who inspires me to be better," he said, his voice filled with emotion. After the lecture, Sophia approached him and said, "You were amazing, Gabriel. People need to hear your message. You're helping more than you realize." Gabriel smiled, feeling the warmth of her affection. "I couldn't have done this without you. You gave me the strength I didn't know I had." Sophia looked into his eyes, her tone serious. "And you gave me something valuable too, Gabriel. You showed me what resilience is. We've both learned and grown together." As they shared their dreams and hopes, Gabriel felt a happiness he hadn't experienced in a long time. He realized that besides Sophia, he had not only rediscovered love but also the true essence of living fully. The future seemed promising, and he was ready to face it, hand in hand with the woman who had become his safe harbor amidst the storm. Gabriel had reached a culminating point in his journey. He had become a respected speaker, his words echoing at events and schools, inspiring people to find strength in their own adversities. The auditorium was packed that night, a mix of veterans, young people, and even curious onlookers drawn to the story of the man who had weathered life's storms. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his achievements and at the same time, the responsibility that came with them. "Good evening, everyone," he began, his voice firm but with a touch of vulnerability. "I'm here tonight to talk about transformation. About how pain can be the fertile ground for a new beginning." The audience listened in reverent silence, each person lost in their own reflections on challenges and triumphs. "I am a war veteran," Gabriel continued, "and war is not just a physical battle. Often the hardest battles are the ones we fight within ourselves." He paused, observing the attentive faces. When I came home, it wasn't just a leg I had lost. I had left a part of myself on that battlefield, and the pain of the betrayal I faced in my relationship only worsened that sense of loss. The murmurs of empathy in the audience were palpable. Gabriel began to recount his story of recovery, not just physically, but emotionally, and how Helena's betrayal had forced him to reinvent himself. He spoke about the darkness of depression, how he felt powerless and distant, but also about the light that came through the support of his friend Joao. He told me something I'll never forget, Gabriel recalled, a smile forming on his face. He said, "Gabriel, you are not defined by what you lost, but by what you can still achieve." That resonated deeply with me. And that's how I began to transform my pain into strength. He remembered the afternoons he spent writing, pouring his emotions into words that became a book, an extension of his soul. And then when I finally had the courage to step on stage, to share my story, I realized that I wasn't just speaking for myself. I was giving a voice to all those who feel lost, to all those who face their own battles. The audience was silent, absorbing every word. He could see tears in some eyes and smiles in others, a genuine connection being forged between him and those who listened. The climax of the presentation approached as he mentioned the recognition he had received. "Recently, I was honored by an organization that works with veterans. They told me that my story of overcoming had made a difference in many lives. It made me realize that sometimes, what seems like our greatest failure can turn into our greatest triumph." The audience erupted in applause, and Gabriel felt the warmth of validation. It was a recognition not just of his journey, but of his struggle and resilience. At the end of the lecture, as people came up to greet him, Gabriel felt full of gratitude. He was now a symbol of strength and perseverance, a beacon of hope for those facing similar adversities. He exchanged encouraging words with veterans who shared stories of struggle and triumph, each connecting deeply and meaningfully. "I never thought I could get this far," he said to a young man who hugged him. "But remember, the true victory is not in never falling, but in rising every time it happens." The young man nodded, his eyes shining with newfound determination. As Gabriel looked around, feeling the positive energy and admiration that floated in the air, he knew he had found his purpose. The path he had walked was not just about his own healing, but about how he could help others find the strength within themselves. And so, with every speech, with every published book, he would continue to sow the seeds of resilience, a legacy of hope for future generations. Helena watched from the window of the small kitchen, the afternoon sunlight illuminating her pale and tired face. The town, which once seemed so welcoming, now suffocated her. The streets were the same, but the memories of the past had turned into shadows that haunted her. She remembered Gabriel's smile, the way he looked at her before the war, before the loss, before everything changed. Now all that remained was a bitter loneliness, and the certainty that her choices had led her to an abyss that seemed endless. That day, Helena decided she needed to get out, maybe find some fresh air. As she walked, her mind wouldn't stop spinning. "What have I done? How did I get to this point?" she thought. The echo of her actions followed her like a ghost that wouldn't leave her in peace. She passed by people she knew, but avoided their gaze. She knew that everyone in the small town talked about her, about Gabriel, about the betrayal that had caused so much damage. The guilt consumed her, but there was something else. The bitterness had turned her into a cold and distant woman, unable to recognize the pain she had caused. In a corner cafe, Helena met with an old friend, Anna. The two hadn't seen each other in a long time, and Anna, noticing the drastic change in her friend, decided to address the subject. "Helena, you don't look well. What happened between you and Gabriel?" "He's doing so well now," Anna said, trying to be gentle but direct. "It's none of your business, Anna. I made mistakes. But he did too." "He was never the same person after the war," Helena replied, her voice trembling, mixing anger and sadness. Anna shook her head, understanding the emotional turmoil Helena was feeling. "But you abandoned him, Hel. He was struggling, and you decided to leave. You can't just put the blame on him." Helena looked down, consumed by shame. I know. But it wasn't easy. I was so lost. Meanwhile, across town, Gabriel was at one of his lectures, sharing his journey of overcoming adversity. He spoke with passion, using the pain he carried as fuel to inspire others. The auditorium was packed, and people listened attentively. In the war, I learned that life can change in an instant. But I also learned that we have the power to rewrite our stories. The betrayal I faced didn't destroy me. On the contrary, it made me stronger, Gabriel said, looking at the audience, his eyes shining with determination. After the lecture, as people approached to congratulate him, Gabriel felt at peace. He had found his purpose, and even though Helena's betrayal had been painful, it had transformed him into a man who now helped others overcome their adversities. "You're a true hero, Gabriel," commented a young man, admiration shining in his eyes. "Your story inspired me not to give up." Gabriel smiled, feeling gratitude blossom in his heart. Life is made of choices. And today, I am grateful for mine. Meanwhile, Helena found herself increasingly isolated. Social media was filled with posts about Gabriel and his success, and the pain of her betrayal intensified. She couldn't escape the reality surrounding her. "I did this to myself," she thought, as tears streamed down her face. On a lonely night, Helena decided to write a letter to Gabriel, trying to express her feelings. "Gabriel, I know I don't have the right to ask for forgiveness, but I need you to know that I deeply regret what I did. Life without you is a shadow of what it could have been. I hope that one day you can forgive me. You deserve to be happy." She hesitated before sending the letter, aware that the response might not be what she hoped for. But the truth was, deep down, she knew her actions had consequences, and that Gabriel had found a new life, far from her betrayal. In the end, while Gabriel continued his path of overcoming and happiness, Helena remained trapped by her choices, a destiny she had shaped herself. And so, life went on, each on their own path, but with destinies that could never cross again.